that at one point took over the TV sets. We're talking the world of soaps. Tonight we have actors and directors, both Emmy nominated and Emmy winning. Together they, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12 soap operas altogether. You know a lot of them because they played iconic roles. We have Hilary Cole today, who was in The Doctors, As the World Turns, but you're gonna really know her as Nora Buchanan in One Life to Live. She managed to take a role that encompassed so many firsts, including women as lawyers, intermarriage. She took on the gamut. Then we have All My Children. We have tonight, she was, I'm so sorry, I need a name.
Crystal Chappell.
Yes, thank you. I wrote everything down except for your name, Crystal. I'm so sorry.
Hilary Smith.
She started in All My Children, Santa Barbara, Days of Our Lives, One Life to Live, and in Guiding Light, she played Olivia Spencer, and again, is really well known for that. Then we have Eileen Angel, but also known as Eileen Christian, who played Delia.
Is Eileen Angel?
That's what they have you as down.
It's Eileen.
Yeah, and I'm Hilary Smith, not Hilary Cole.
Okay.
And you're going to know her from from Ryan's Hope, playing Delia. This was iconic, this role. Roxy on One Life to Live, and Nora Glippen from Loving, and then Another World. We're going to start tonight with Hilary. Hilary, how did you get involved in the soap operas?
Oh, it's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to do my theater at night and do my soap operas during the day. And my first role was on The Doctors, and it was perfect. We were done usually by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and, you could do your theater at night. But it was, I did everything before I did soaps, because soaps, I couldn't get arrested on a soap opera. So I did Broadway, and I did regional, and I did prime time. I was in Los Angeles. And finally, I got the job on The Doctors, and that lasted 6 months, and it went off the air, and I was back out to LA doing primetime. And all I wanted to do was be in a soap opera. I watched them. I love them. It's live theater on television is what it is. And it's that energy, and you're doing a different play every day. And it's just, it was exciting. And I just loved it. Loved it.
What Broadway shows did you do while you were doing soaps?
I did Heidi Chronicles. I did Lips Together, Teeth Apart. I did Any Given Monday, Real American Hero. I don't know. Anyway, but Heidi Chronicles, Lips Together, Teeth Apart, and Any Given Monday I was doing while I was doing One Life to Live. That's, and the hour soaps don't really lend themselves to the theater schedule. So that was a little tiring.
Yeah.
Crystal, same question.
Did I do any theater?
No, how did you get involved in the soap operas?
I love them. My grandmother used to watch them, and I was an ABC girl. She was NBC, and unfortunately she passed away from a brain tumor. But while she was ill, she woke up and she looked at the TV, and because I wanted to change Days of Our Lives, it was on, and I was like, I don't watch that show. I watch all My Children and One Life and GH. And I said, Grandma, can I change the channel? Which is like, you don't ask anybody to do that, I discovered, but I was young at the time and I didn't know any better. She's such a grandmother. Yeah. And she looked up, again, she was ill, and she said, you're going to be on that show one day. And she went back to sleep. I went, yeah, okay. I was probably 15 years old at the time. But I've always loved them. I loved all the characters. They were my family. I would have, pretend that they were my grandparents, a favorite couple that I loved. And yeah, they were my family. So I purposely set out to do soaps. It's really all I ever wanted to do.
Now, Eileen, I know that you started off with Patty Simcox in Grease, but how did you get involved in the soap operas? Because you were young.
Excuse me?
You were young.
Well, I started in the business when I was 14, and I started off as a dancer. And I basically worked with the late great choreographer Michael Bennett from the time I was 15 until I was about 18. So I did a Broadway show when I was 15.
Henry Street Henry.
Yes, and that was based on the world of Henry Orient, that incredible movie. So I did that, and then I got Grease, and I was in Grease for 2 years. And I really thought my trajectory was going to be in either musical theater or basically in theater. And when the soap came up, I had not really watched soaps growing up as a kid. I really was like a My Little Margie, I Love Lucy kid, Dick Van Dyke, you know. So I kind of thought I might be heading that way, but the soap came up, and I said to my agent, I'm not really sure it's really what I want to do. He goes, it won't last longer than 6 months. So, but once I started doing it, I found it challenging and an amazing experience. And one of the scariest experiences, because it was a new script. I had done a show for 2 years where we said the same dialogue, you know, over and over. And all of a sudden, every day was different. And that was pretty scary.
Now, all three of you played roles that became iconically famous. So we're going to start with Hillary. Hillary, Nora, how did you get her? And tell us your favorite moments of her.
Oh, that's so funny. I when I screen tested, well, okay, I better go back. When I was on As the World Turns, I was there for 6.5 years, and I really loved Doug Marland. And I left because I needed to do other things. So it was very sad to say goodbye to Margot Hughes, but I did. And for 3 years, I was doing in film and Broadway and primetime. And my husband and my children were like, okay, you need to kind of come back. You need to be here. So I went, okay. So I called my agent and I said, all right, I think I'm going to go back to a soap opera. And he put the word out, and I got a call immediately. They're casting for One Life to Live. And I went, oh, that's right. That's opposite time of As the World Turns. So I called Doug Marland and I just said, I just want you to know that I'm coming back to daytime and I'm auditioning for One Life to Live. And I just wanted to give you that courtesy. And he said, you know what, we're really happy with Ellen. So, you know, bless you, go. So I was like, okay. So I went to the audition, and when I was auditioning with Bob Woods, screen testing with Bob Woods, the director, David Meisner, came out and he said, I'm supposed to tell you something, but I'm not going to tell you. And I just want you to nod your head yes. And he had his back to the camera, and I said, what? And he goes, just nod your head yes. And I went, and he goes, and smile. And I smiled, and he goes, okay. And I went, okay. And then I kind of went, sir, wait, really, should I know something? He goes, no, you're fine. He went back into the booth. I did the scene again with Woodsy. And then I was called up to the executive producer's office, and she said, we're really looking for a redhead. And I said, well, you had a redhead that auditioned, so you should probably hire her. And I was getting ready to go do, I was going to step in to do Sisters Rosenzweig. And I got the call saying, they want you to do One Life to Live, and they don't want you to do the play. So I was like, and my husband went, you're doing One Life to Live. So I said no to Sisters Rosenzweig. I did the play, did One Life to Live. And, you know, my favorite moments, I think it had to be my scenes with Woodsy. They were, it was written so beautifully. I mean, Michael Malone wrote this character so beautifully. Yeah. And what happened was you saw the two characters meet, and you watched us date, and you went on these dates. I mean, true dates. He came to pick me up. We went and played miniature golf. We went home. We had kissy, 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 and then, oh, no, we can't. And you went through this elongated process of these two people falling in love. And what happened was the audience fell in love with us.
Yes.
You know, while we were dating. And I think that it just magically went from there. And it became this really wonderful ride.
Crystal, Olivia Spencer, how did you get her and what are your favorite moments of her?
Well, I was actually on One Life to Live working with Hillary, and Paul Rausch called the production office to see when my contract was up. Right.
Like
and yeah, so he just called me when I left One Life, and he called me, and he actually brought me on in a recurring part because he didn't want to deal with the network. So he brought me on and let the fans warm up to me and offered me a contract. And that's my favorite moments. Like, you know, it really scared me because she was horrible. She just did horrible things. And normally in soap operas, you just didn't last very long if you did all the bad things. It was fun because you got to say all the stuff that maybe some of the fans wanted to say to some characters, right? But I remember looking at Paul, I said, they're going to hate me. He goes, really? I think it makes you more interesting. And so it just kind of gave me permission to just go for it. And it was just 10 years of, you know, free therapy as far as I was concerned. You just get to say the things that you walk out. I'd have to hang up that skin at the end of the day because it was just like, oh my gosh, the thing this woman is doing, and it's terrible, but so much fun. So any of the stuff where she like really went out on a limb, I thought was challenging and a lot of fun.
Eileen, you've done Delia in Ryan's Hope. I think that was maybe one of the first iconic roles that people knew in soap operas.
Wow.
Can you talk about getting her and your favorite moments?
I can. I was doing an off-Broadway show called, I had left Grease, and I was doing an off-Broadway show called Blackbird Spring, where I played a blues singer. And I was dressed like a hippie in this play, and I got a call from Shirley Rich. And so I went over to Shirley Rich's office to audition for this part in the soap, and for Delia. And she looks at me and she goes, and she was like Rosalind Russell. She went, darling, you're so perfect for this, but you do not come back in those hippie clothes. So I came back the next time. And the wonderful thing about Shirley Rich was if she felt you were right for something, she'd stick her neck out. When I walked in to meet Claire Labine and Paul Mayer, literally, they were like this. They were like, Eileen, it's because Shirley had actually told them stuff about me, you know, and so it was a kind of beautiful meeting, and I had a really good vibe about it. And then I read the Bible, the breakdown of the characters, and the Delia character seemed to be so fascinating. And because I grew up in New York, I felt like, you know, this could be my role. And then I went back for the final audition. And while I was doing the scene, and I had to read with a really arrogant actor who I think he thought he was going to get it. And kind of a little narcissistic. And I felt, you know, I'll just serve him in the scene, you know, we'll serve each other in the scene, but, you know, his ego is a little big. Anyway, we're doing the scene and my button pops on my shirt and it flies clear across there. And I just went right on. And they said that was like the deciding moment when the button popped off, and it was probably fairly low. And I just went right on. So next thing I knew, I was hired.
Throwing Frank down the stairs.
Yeah. But the first week was tough, you know, after doing theater and everything. You want to try to take it down, but all my scenes were so, you know, crying or so emotionally charged that it's hard to find that balance, you know, after doing theater for so long.
What was your favorite moment of Delia?
There were a lot. There are a couple scenes where I'm blind and that my eyesight comes back, but I pretend that I'm still blind. And there's just one of these great moments where I've got my dark glasses on and my husband, my second husband, throws me a hairbrush and I just go like, I catch it. And he knows I'm not blind. So it was just, and there was a lot of stuff that led up to that. Very funny scenes with Joe Bova, who used to play Officer Joe on television. And he was like someone I watched as a kid. And I was doing these real comedy scenes with him on this passenger liner as a blind person. And he's rubbing my feet, and it was just some very funny stuff. They wrote, Claire and Paul were quite extraordinary.
Gary, I didn't mean to leave you out. How many soap operas have you directed?
Another World, Loving, One Life to Live Forever. I did also General Hospital, Bold and the Beautiful, but a very special One Life to Live, All My Children, 2-hour fight over a baby in court.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, well, so do I.
I had a lot of theater friends that did soap operas, so I never watched them, and then my theater friends were in it. And I was like, okay, that's time to watch.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. The wonderful thing about being a director in New York City was that there are so many fantastic actors and character actors here in the city. We were right in the middle of the downtown, so I can't tell you how many times under 5 or a day player would come in that was a huge actor that I had no business trying to give any direction to. What's that?
Elaine Stritch, Jim Ringhorn, it goes on. Yeah.
On and on and on. And I would have to take a breath sometimes, just go, oh my God. Oh my God.
Really, that leads to a great question.
It's wonderful. What's that?
This leads to a great question, and it's to all 4 of you. Who was your favorite guest star, or the guest star that you went, oh my God, they're in my show? Who would it be?
Well, the first one for me is Richard Simmons. Okay, I'm sorry. General Hospital, it was like 6 acts of Richard Simmons in those 1980s shorts, except it was 2005 or something, 2012. But you know what I would like to say? When I was in college, way back in the Wayback Machine, I used to watch One Life to Live. I really liked it because it had all these diverse characters and everything, but it had Erica Slezak on, okay? And I eventually got to direct on the show for many years with Erica Slezak. And I could never tell her 2 things. One was that I had watched her when I was in college, okay? The other one was that she looked a lot like my mother and had an incredible simpatico with their mothering and teaching and strictness, but that I'm glad I'm finally telling someone about it because it was to be able to work as a freelance artist. I think sure all 4 of us would agree with this. On a run like this, especially for the actors, where they could just work and develop the character and just chew it up. And if they had the moxie, like some of these women did, to go out and do other things while they were doing One Life to Live, it was an incredible asset to an artist. I really didn't realize until I read a book called Her Stories, which is a wonderful history of soap operas that I finished during the lockdown. How fortunate we were to be there at that time. ABC, the soaps were huge. And to make a run like that as an artist was so special, so special. That's all I can say. That's what I want to say.
Crystal, who was your favorite person or a moment of working?
Well, when I was on One Life to Live, I met this lady named Hillary Smith. Such a big fan. She knows this. I'm such a big fan. I was a fan of the show. And so I was in awe of everybody there. I was a fan, I think, but I needed to act with them, which was there was a transition that I had to do in order to act with them. But I will say what was fun during that time was the musical guests. Do you remember that, Hillary? You guys had the Beach Boys and Erykah Badu and
Erykah Badu, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Yeah, we had some really, really fabulous people. I mean, Gary, I think you even directed some of those.
They were wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big names. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, we had As the World Turns. We had Whitney Houston. She was a brand new babe.
Oh,
She was,
wow.
you know, fresh off the boat. You know, fresh out of the choir, I should say. And she sang. She was so sweet, so nice. I mean, it was really incredible. Minnie Riperton. You know, a lot of those.
I also remember a couple of artists. We did a reboot of One Life to Live online. And they were bringing in a lot of disco characters and rappers.
Nope.
And oh my God, yeah. But there was this one artist. I want to bring up his name, but we have such a limited amount of time to what we called rehearse. You know, to run through the lines in the morning or at lunchtime before hitting the set later. And so this guy was going to perform somewhere, fly all night to us, and then there was going to be a trailer for him out in the parking lot, and he was going to show up at rehearsal, 7:30, 8 o'clock. So 7:30, 8 o'clock comes and he's not here, and we do the run through for all the rehearsal. I've got like 2.5 hours or an hour and a half to rehearse 10, 15 scenes with people, and so we did all that. And on my way to run upstairs to get going on the studio floor, I thought I'd stop out at the trailer and say hi to this guy. So I go, I knock on the trailer, and I hear like, like everything. And I sort of, and I'm hearing all kinds of things getting put away and, like this. And I'm like, hey, hi, well, yeah, you in there? And he goes, yeah. So he opens the door and he's like, hey, man, what's going on? And I go, well, here's what's going on. Whatever you just did, it needs to peak about 1 o'clock today. Here's the lines I've got for you. Just put them on the wall, write them real big, whatever you got to do. I'll see you at 1 o'clock. Okay. And he showed up, and he knew what I was talking about. And he was great.
Eileen, who was yours? Because you had one of my favorite people on your show.
Who?
Helen Gallagher.
Oh, Helen Gallagher was extraordinary. A legend, really a legend. She was brilliant. But I have to say, I mean, I love working with Helen, but Helen was a regular on the show. But of the guest stars, I got to work with Sylvia Miles playing my mother.
Oh, yeah.
And we only worked together 3 times, unfortunately. Her work ethic was incredible. We bonded. She came over here. She rehearsed with me for hours because we just wanted to make sure we had it down. I love working with her. I worked with Regis Philbin on Ryan's Hope, and that was a lot of fun. And Snoop Dogg, I have to say, that was a thrill. And I got to do this really funny bit with Snoop Dogg, and Mary J. Blige was on the show, and I got to talk to her. And
this is a picture of Sylvia Miles and Eileen.
Oh, fabulous.
You can see that.
Wow.
Gary, my next question's to you. Of all the soap operas that you've directed, what is your favorite scene or moment that you could say, I am so glad I directed that?
Oh, gosh. Well, all right. Boy, I don't know where to start with that one, except to say, to be involved with something. Before I was directing, actually, I was a technical director on One Life to Live. And we did the AIDS blanket outdoors. We did a remote. And it's the first thing that comes to my heart. And that's why I love One Life to Live. Andrew Carpenter, Crystal's cousin on the show, Hillary's character was in it. Got the AIDS blanket to come out to our church. And the real one showed up in a van, and then they laid it out, and we had these wonderful scenes. And it was touching scenes about a young man who was realizing that he was gay, and Father Andrew, and all this stuff. Well, it was a beautiful, very meaningful shoot. And we didn't go out of the studio often. A couple of years later, we revisited the storyline, and the AIDS blanket showed up in an 18-wheeler. Wow. And it rolled out as big as a football field. And we added 3 squares from our show. And I just remember thinking, you know, this show really does something. Okay, as much as people think that it's, you know, professional wrestling with, you know, or something, you know, they take it's cartoony or whatever it is. These actors touched people all the time. Fact of it is that if any of them walk down the street to this day, somebody will grab them in Trader Joe's or something and just, you know, chew their ear off and tell them how much they love them. I don't even know what the question was, but that's my answer.
That's okay, it works. This question again.
You know, another favorite scene was one time Hillary was in a freaking swimming pool. It was 9 foot tall with metal all around the outside. We had an underwater camera put in, and I don't know what was going on in the river there, Hillary, of a car crash or whatever it was.
Catherine Hicklin ran me up the road.
3, 2, 1, and Hillary went, "Oh, I just got a shock." Okay, this is one of my favorite people on the planet, and I hear her on the microphones from the control and go, "I think I just felt the shock." So I go busting out of the control room because I knew what it was. I knew that this camera, this underwater camera, had been going into this situation, and every now and then water was lapping over the side. And somewhere, even though there were crew and there were towels and there were all this stuff, there was electric and water together. And what had happened was that camera had been put in at the very last moment. A little box was put in, and some of that water splashed in. And I remember going out there and kicking that thing, you know, and getting it and pulling it apart. And there have been so many scenes between Bo and Nora that I loved. I loved doing play scenes with them. I loved doing love scenes with them. But that moment, Hillary, I swear to God, I was so scared for the reality of you. And you were so cool. You were just cool as a moose. You didn't move. We had electric and, you know, lights in the water and stuff. I mean, it was dangerous. What we would do sometimes, like with Eileen, Roxy, in the bar, you know, there were things where we would do stunts, or I'd ask her to, you know, plank between a chair and a table or something, or listen, bring your butt over the side of this and then pick up a booze bottle and come over here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it better be good, and no one better get hurt. It got crazier at the end because we have so many pages. But when I think of one of my favorite scenes, there were many wonderful scenes in there. But that scene with Hillary was very real. Okay? It was like, you know, all of a sudden we bridged soap opera and real drama. And you survived, so that was a hit.
And I got back in the water.
Yeah. Yes,
got back in the water. Yeah.
My next question.
We had 4 more scenes to do in that water. No way you were getting back in that water.
My next question to all 4 of you is, what role, whether it's a soap or theater, is the role that you would love to still play, or that got away from you? Hillary, we're going to start with you.
Oh, I think I have to, you know, you're talking about in soap operas
or theater. What role either got away or that you're dying to play?
I did Lips Together, Teeth Apart, and I really loved that play. It was an emotional gymnastic event every night, and it was different every night. And that's the sign of a really good playwright, when you come together and the play sort of has a different feeling and sends a different message each night, depending upon, you know, the experience of the actors and how they come together that day. It can be a completely different feeling. And that was, for me, it was, I was on the stage with Jonathan Hadary and Roxanne Hart, and, you know, incredible actors. And so it was truly a 4-in-hand piece. And I think that was for theater, but I think I want to go back. I'd like to go back to One Life, because I've learned so much about myself since One Life. And I learned a lot about myself during One Life. And I I think that there was a growth period and then there became this sort of plateau period. And I'd like to go back with a little more maturity to that growth, that plateau period, and maybe find different ways of having played and navigated that time.
Crystal.
There isn't really a character that I feel like, oh, I missed out on that and I want to do that. I think it's more a storyline I would have liked to have had on the soap. Like a really prolonged coma storyline like Hillary had, where I get paid for lying there. No, I mean, like a split personality kind of storyline. I think that I always wanted to do one of those. So, and I never did. So that would have been a lot of fun to play with.
Eileen.
I loved doing Roxy. As great as Delia was, doing Roxy for 10 years was one of the greatest gifts in my life ever. Because I felt after 9/11, I just wanted to make people laugh and be entertained and to kind of just rally everybody together. And I got the job the day before 9/11. I found out I was going to be doing it. The day after, the day that it happened, I was supposed to be negotiating, and I said I couldn't even talk about anything for weeks. But by the end of September, I was up and running, and I just felt so profoundly lucky. Hillary, I had a great time. I think everybody could tell I was having really a great time. I just really enjoyed her. I found her, there was so much more I felt like I could have been doing. And I think this would have been a very interesting time with what's going on, that Roxy would have had a lot of commentary on it. So,
Harry, what would you have liked to have directed, or is there an episode that you were just so thrilled with that because it was it made your career?
Well, there were a couple of shows during the Jill Phelps run that I was the flavor of the month at that point for a year or two, and I got to do a number of really great scripts. They would try, back in the days before everything got really chopped up. A lot of times they would write Emmy shows, what they call an Emmy show for actors, some of the front burner actors, and a lot of times we would get a show that Frank Valentini or whoever the executive producer would dog ear for us and go, I think this is the one you should do that should get, that this might be your Emmy submission. There was one show, actually, I mean, it sounds so crazy. There's certain rules about soap operas. Like if you start to tell somebody about a plot, 3 sentences in, their eyes start glazing over, okay? So bear with me on this one. But Bree Williamson had a point, her character had in one day, and then ran for the course of about 3 episodes, but one major day, she was herself. She was in her brain in a cage, okay, of lightning and, sparky, crazy, broken mirror stuff. And then another school marmy character was running around imprisoning her. And we actually were shooting them all in one day, which was extremely challenging for Bree. But she was like, these were very smart women. We worked on it together. I had a concept of these broken mirrors pieces in the prison, and some lightning and some things. And the team there was so great at putting together amazing quick sets and lighting and stuff. And this might go into the regret category. I got to really work with an actor. A lot of times it was like directing on a train. We would go so fast. No stress, but very fast. But I got to work, almost all day with this person going through this thing. And when it got done, I can't speak for her and how she felt about her performance, but her performance, in my opinion, was wonderful. And it was very separated and integrated at the same time. And what I had in my mind, 10 days or a week before it, trying to figure it out at my house with a paper and a pencil and some drawings, it really came together. She didn't submit that one for her Emmy that year, and did another show about a funeral. And I remember thinking, oh God, she's going to cry for 6 acts. And this is so, and the regret I had was for her, because I think that was a moment it was to me, what I experienced with her in her career was one of the greatest moments she put together in one day.
Gary, I just want to add to that, because it's really interesting that you say she should have put that as her Emmy reel. You can take those moments and look at them, but when you lift them out of that soap world and you let it stand on its own without an understanding of the context,
right?
Sometimes it doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
Even though it's technically really interesting, it doesn't resonate because it doesn't tell a complete story. That's probably
that was the thing with this one put one of those crazy freaking Lord's brain stories together for her.
Yeah.
It's
really hard. You hear what I'm saying, because it may be technically, it probably was a great show for you to put on there, but for an actor to lift it out and to put it on its own without the context, sometimes that's the hard thing. You can have these really fabulous acting moments and scenes and shows, but then when you lift it out and put it into a reel, and you kind of go, it's not going to resonate.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do What Are You Doing Now? I know, Gary, you're doing amazing things, so you're going last. Hillary, what are you doing now? Well, yeah, because I know about the Barrymore. Hillary, what are you doing now? Where are you? And where is your career these days?
Well, I have to tell you that Crystal and I have, it started when Crystal was leaving Guiding Light, and she said, I'm going to do this show on the internet. And I was like, what? Wow, the internet? What a concept. And she did it. And I said, I'm on board. I want to do it. So I played this little part, and it was so exciting and wonderful to have to work with her and work on this show, Venice, that I kept saying, sign me up, sign me up, sign me up. And it evolved after One Life to Live. The reboot went away. She asked me to produce one of her shows. And then she asked me to produce a movie. And then we started doing Venice, keep going with Venice. And then we did a scene together in Venice where we were in the kitchen and we were cooking and drinking. And the fans loved it so much that after we were doing the movie, we'd have production meetings, post-production meetings on the stoop outside this house that we were shooting in, and we started laughing. I called ourselves the It Girls on the Stoop, not to be confused with Stoop It Girls. And we created this show of the It Girls on the Stoop doing things stupid simple, and we did it in the kitchen with laughing and cooking and drinking, and we had a great time. We've done 2 seasons, and we're getting ready to launch season 3, and we're going to do it Zoom. And it's just been, it's basically, we do it for us and our fans, who are incredibly generous and so lovely. And we do it for us because it's our time to be together and just to laugh. I mean, literally the first episode we ever did, we got laughing so hard I peed my pants on camera. So it's a really fun show, and we look forward to doing it. And so we just wrapped Venice, the series. We did Beacon Hill season 2, and now we're getting ready to do It Girls. So we're very busy doing things, creating our own content, which is just making my life full of joy.
Crystal, do you have things to add to this?
No, she just said it all. I love that.
If not, then I have another question for you.
Okay.
Talk about how your friendship began and how I take it you met on One Life to Live.
Yes.
And tell us about how you met and how it's continued, because it seems like it's continued intensely.
Well, it's interesting because Hillary and I have talked about this, that we're come from completely different worlds. And we could have some very heated discussions about things, but you always ended up laughing and peeing your pants. And I think that's what this whole world needs to do. Absolutely. We all just need to pee our pants together and get over ourselves. It just sort of happened. I mean, I'm trying to think. When Guiding Light was going off the air, we were already pretty good friends, but she invited me to come live with her and her husband. And my family moved back west, and I don't know, I just we started working. That's where Venice popped up, and I think the producing part of it really kind of bonded us together over the years, because neither one of us had done that before and really knew what it was about, and it was challenging and time consuming, and I think we both have very similar work ethics, and but at the same time, we want people to have a good time, and be their best. And so I think we're quite a good team as producers and as actors, and especially as friends.
Eileen, I know that you've been doing a lot of cabaret clubs, but what else have you been doing during this time?
Well, I've had a very big project called the Gary Donatelli Show. Because I live with Gary. And that's a fascinating, incredible experience. He's an incredible person, but he's one of the most interesting people I know. And
why did you guys sit in the same chair?
Well, he's a big guy. He needs a lot of space. I worked on a show called.
We'll just give you the end right away. We got to reveal. Come on, let's build it.
I worked on a show called Melange with Morgan Fairchild, which was really a great experience. We kind of thought we'd be able to get it back on the road. It's a kind of a combination between a soap opera and Cheers. And I play a gay bartender named Dolly Faye. And I'm married to Anne Ramsey, who's on Mad About You. So it's a great cast. I hope we can pull this back together. When the pandemic hit, I was supposed to do a theater piece at Theater for the New City, a really interesting piece. So I'm not sure, they're
Grease Memoirs.
Oh, I'm working on the Grease Memoirs with the original cast of Grease, plus the other cast that came along in that 10-year period of that original cast. We're working on a book that's going to come out at the 50th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Which is February 14th, 20. Yeah, we opened in 72. So in 2022. But I'm slaving over that. I wrote 3 little chapters so far that are quite good. And then I'm having a hard time with the rest of it. So that's been a project. Thank you for reminding me, Gary, because it's so, I got to finish it.
That's what a director does.
And Gary, can we talk about the Barrymore Film Institute?
We can talk about anything you like.
I'd like to talk about that.
Across the river from Manhattan, across the George Washington Bridge, is a little town called Fort Lee, New Jersey. It's known by some as the birthplace of American film. 1900 and through the 1920s, before Hollywood started, there were 13 studios there in that little town. The cliffhanger, Perils of Pauline, the term cliffhanger was developed there. So there were some very dedicated people from that town that have ancestors that go back to it. There was a time when they did things like Les Mis. They shot that film there 100 years ago. 2/3 of the town were extras, and the other third were making the movie. It's an amazing history, and there's stuff lying all around there. The Barrymores family had a house there, and a lot of legend. I could go on and on and on about them, but they lived there. And about 10 years ago, there was a push to get rid of the old Barrymore house. And people fought in town for that, with this little film commission, to do something about it. And they lost, and the house got torn down. Then the Rambo house, which was this house that actors would take the ferry across from New York every morning. Imagine, it's almost like soap operas. They would come across, they would meet at the Rambo house, have a giant breakfast for the cast and crew. They'd get out there, and the writer and director would tell them, okay, today it's comedy, or today it's Western, or whatever it was. And they'd go out and shoot their one reeler, that day. So the Rambo house, and they used the Rambo house. It's in many things. Well, this time around, there were different people in the politics of the little town. And they figured out to save the place. And now a couple of veterans families, war veterans families, are living in the place. And it spurred this push for history. The very progressive mayor doggered $15 million to build a building. If you want to see something fun, go to BarrymoreFilmCenter.com or .org. Either one will get you there. Barrymore Film Center, all one word. And you'll see what's going on. There's a celebration of past. There's the present, where we're building this beautiful building. And the pandemic slowed us up. We were going to have a grand opening October 2nd, but actually it's helping us to make it a little better. And while we're doing this, the Drew Barrymore show came on, and Drew came to New York. So we're having this wonderful interaction with Flower Films, with Drew and her friends, who are the people that run her company. And I love it personally that we're plugged into this wild, crazy Positation that she has on Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock on CBS. And the interactive, they're as excited, and she's as proud of her wild, crazy family as we are. And the more I get to see her energy with what's going on right now with this live show, I realize why this Barrymore name stayed so alive, that we named a film center after that in family 100 years later. So
well, I want to jump in here and let you know
ahead,
that
Mark.
the Lambs is very involved with that.
That's true.
The Barrymores were, a lot of them were members. We've been trying to get Drew to come do something at the Lambs and honor her for her heritage. But Nelson Page and Tom Myers are Lambs. They're two of the people, and the Lambs Foundation has been giving financial support. And they plan on doing a one-man show about Barrymore that will be played by a Lamb.
That's true.
Back to you.
You should actually do a Zoom reading of the royal family, considering it's about the Barrymores.
That would be a lot of fun.
Right.
I actually saw that with John Barrymore in it.
Is that right?
Yeah, I did.
Be careful.
Wow.
We're going to have you on a Zoom call.
Now you're going to know my age is what's going to happen.
That's all right. That's all right.
Well, I think at this point, I'm going to open the venue up for questions and answering from the people that are here.
Well, since we have a small group, I'm just going to encourage everyone to unmute themselves, and let's see how that works. If you have questions, just jump in. Magda, you're usually good with a question. Why don't you start us off?
Well, there had been so many, it's such an interesting evening, so I haven't really come up with a question. All of you are such great artists. And how do you find this time? Do you find it a creative time for you? Are you all being very creative because the work is not there?
Well, Crystal and I are being very creative. Crystal and I are being very creative because there is the limitations of with COVID. And she's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, well, I'm in the Keys. And it's really been kind of interesting to kind of scratch our brain and to figure out how we're going to do our season 3. So yeah, I think that, during any kind of limitations, it's always a time for great innovation and creativity. So I look at it that way.
Now, where do you find, you write your own scripts or you have writers? How do you find your material?
Well, the material just happens with Crystal and I.
So it's not scripted?
No,
not It Girls, no.
Uh-huh.
Other shows that I produce, I hire a writer.
Okay.
Yeah. But I found, during this time, it was I wasn't feeling very creative. for a while. I think it was all just the reality of the big change that's happened and has happened was hitting me. And I think I kind of went through this little lull or this depression. And then finally it was like, okay, I'm ready to get back out there and create something. And I reached out to Hillary and said, let's try it virtually and see if, see if we can make this work.
Are you calling on any other actor friends to be in your productions?
Yeah, I always call on my soap friends. Yes, my actor friends. I think they're the best. I have so much respect for them, and love. And but with It Girls, we have season 3. We have Jim and Cassie DePaiva.
Oh yeah.
Who are going to be in the kitchen with us virtually, drinking and making stuff. And Miriam Hassler and Nadia Bjorlin from Days of Our Lives are going to come and play. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
I'd like to ask a question, if I might, to both of you. What are your thoughts on General Hospital, both the production, the acting, and the storylines on General Hospital?
Well, that's done a little bit on there, and I think Eileen's been there, and I know Gary, I'm sure you've directed. I find the actors are very, very good. I really enjoy my time there, and I think it's a tight ship that's run by Frank Valentino. I haven't been watching it regularly, but I know that the people who do really, really love it because it's very timely and well crafted.
Thank you.
Actually, I was thinking
what's your
Delia and
thought?
Sonny. I thought that they were a good couple. Delia and Sonny should have been something.
Yeah.
They were really funny.
It was an interesting experience being there. I loved working with Maura West.
Yes.
We have a lot of the same work ethic. I like to rehearse. And sometimes a lot of the other people, I couldn't find them for rehearsal, which was a scary thing.
It's harder in that building. We used to have such a nice little playhouse.
Yeah, there's something cold about the building and distant about the building. And it's bigger. And but it was very hard sometimes to really rehearse a scene to make something out of it. You'd come down on the floor and it would feel like a very
the economic demands make it so hard for the actors to come up with it every day. So the pressure is very hard.
I think you got to find the time, though. I think you've got to.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience. Everyone was very available to rehearse and so I didn't have that experience. But.
Well, Maura, as I said, Maura and Maurice were incredible to work with.
Gary, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are you have you directed films, or you were always in television?
Well, I've done some documentary work, but I produced a film that I'm quite proud of, actually. It was a friend of mine, Dylan Baker's directorial debut.
Oh, wow.
23 Blast. Based on a true story of a young man in Kentucky who was a super athlete, went blind almost overnight, almost died, and then came back and played center on his high school football team. That was a wonderful experience. It came along just almost right when One Life to Live went off the air. And actually, Dylan came to me about directing it. And I said, listen, Dylan's in the world of agencies and everything. He's the workingest guy in the world. He's that guy. Everybody. So I said, we're going to get a lot further in agencies once this thing gets made with Dylan Baker's directorial debut than a soap opera director. It's just the truth, So we swapped kind of roles, and it was a great experience preparing a set or things for the director, and being able to kind of be in the back seat and watch people work was exciting. It was also nerve-wracking because there's never enough money or time or whatever. But the
you had no desire to do films, to direct. Did you have any desire to direct films?
Well, I did at that time, but I knew that it was you know, it was better to work it the other way. At this point, I mean, people still send me things. But right now, I haven't, you know, like just the other day, this guy sent me when he really wants us to work to do. But the Barrymore Center project is taking a lot of time right now. And I kind of like to get that thing to land and work with other filmmakers. I enjoy watching younger filmmakers work. And let me tell you, after 20 years of steady, you know, 60 to 130 pages a day of directing, I'm okay with letting somebody else do it right now. You know, so like the ego part, I don't need anymore. And the pressure, you know, it was very intense where we were because of the nature of the speed of it. If the right project came along, you know, but sometimes you have to, it's like if you're going fishing, you kind of have to go to and look for the fish. I'm not really looking for that right now.
Gary directed Melange, though.
Oh, yeah.
So
really,
that gets off the ground
yeah.
again, I hope.
It was
I
quite
have
an
a
adventure.
question.
What's
There
that?
was a time that soap operas dominated TV. I mean, from noon to 4, this was what people watched. When you went into the grocery store lines, everybody was picking up Soap Opera Digest. And then reality TV came along and it kind of stopped soap operas. Can you see the soap operas coming back like they were and coming back and taking and dominating?
Well, they'll come forward. Hillary and Krista are just talking about that. The melange that Eileen was speaking about is the same thing. No, it's not going back. It's just like Broadway. Broadway's not going back. It's going to go forward. People will sing. People will be in buildings, but there's going to be some kind of a global addition to it to make it financially feasible. And my perception of it from knowing the history of this genre is that people will constantly look to invent again and try to figure out how to make it work financially. But the hunger for a daily dose of story is never going to go away.
Yeah.
Never.
I think a lot of them podcasters are doing that, where they're telling stories almost like the old radio. I find myself looking for that. So when I'm driving, you know, it's the soap opera, but you could get a podcast. That's another, you know, might be a future for soap operas.
I think a serial on the web.
Well, that's how it started.
Yeah.
What?
I think
that's how soap operas.
Right, that's where they started.
Yeah.
They started on radio and, you know, 15 minutes. And it was just basically to keep people tuned in between commercials.
Well, I used to work in the broadcast area before I was a director. And the people on that end of it, where they send out the pictures, used to say that we were the shows were the pretty pictures around which the commercials were wrapped. Okay.
That's right.
Pretty wrapping.
Yeah.
No mistake about that.
I mean, I think for soaps to go back to a radio type of format, I don't know. I think people like to see people.
They like to see you three, that's for sure.
I think
it's why they were called soap operas, because the soap companies owned them, and that's how they used to implant their products in there. They sat around the Folgers coffee, they sat and they used the Tide, and they used all the products and they created a little story so it would be interesting. And they did it once with Taster's Choice. Remember, Taster's Choice had that little thing going on. Everybody likes a good story. Crystal always tells me everybody wants a romance. Everybody wants a story, and just give them a good story and they'll watch.
That's right.
I agree. We saw something the other day. The script wasn't good. It was done through Ensemble Studio Theater. It was a Zoom reading, and it was quite sophisticated. They did very unusual things with the visuals and having 3 screens, and it was very, very creative. We overall didn't really love the show, the actual written script, but the visuals, we saw how visuals could play out in this kind of a format.
And understanding that a lot of times it's the actors right now, they're setting up their own camera and setting things up and doing their side by themselves and then editing, putting things together. There's a lot of creativity going on. Actually, Dylan Baker, who I was speaking of earlier, and his wife, Becky Baker, just are part of a series on Netflix again, where they were up at their summer house and shot a film about a couple. Lit it, shot it, made it up, and
I just want to say on the Zoom, on the audience here, we have Pat Addis, who's a producer, and she just produced a reading of Dorothy Lyman. You're familiar with Dorothy? Yeah, Dorothy Lyman wrote a fabulous play, and she had a reading on Zoom. Pat, are you there? She's probably muted. But anyway, it was a wonderful. Pat produced it. Yes, Pat.
Yes.
Okay. I was talking about what you produced for Dorothy Lyman. You want to talk about?
So it was a two-play.
Character.
Eileen, you and Gary could do it. It's a two-cover play. Takes place in Florida and the Keys, but it could be anywhere.
We'll do it at Hillary's house.
Hillary
will be there tomorrow morning. Go ahead, tell us about it.
You have to have two balconies. The woman is on one balcony and the man is on the other, and he puts the moves on her, and she's not interested, but she has her granddaughter and grandchild there, and when they leave, she's a little more flexible. And
I'd love to read it. I love Dorothy Lyman.
She's a fabulous writer. Fabulous writer.
I've known Dorothy since I did Grease. She was friendly with Carol Demas, who was in the cast. And so I've known Dorothy since 1972.
Well, reach out. You'd be great in the part. So both of you could play the part.
Well, you know, I know what year it was.
Good actor.
David Gregory, one of the great hunky characters on One Life to Live. It's also a writer and a director. And he contacted me a couple of years ago about a play he had written. He said, I was writing this play and I kept hearing the character with your voice and your face. Would you consider doing a play? And when I was in college, it was the last time I did a play. But I said, well, let me read it. And I read it, and it was a great play about this crazy doctor who makes a replicant of his daughter, and the assistant falls in love with it. What's the guy that was the assistant? He was on One Life.
And what happened to the play?
So what happened was we put it up.
Barrett.
Oh, Barrett Helms. Yeah, was the assistant, was my assistant. And
my brain is still.
So, we started to do the rehearsals and we're having all this fun, but it was about 3 weeks away and I had 75 pages of dialogue and I go to David, God, David, I don't know if I can do this, man. I got like 30 of it locked, but get over this hump. And he was such a wonderful director. He was so patient with me and just so, he was probably scared to death, at the time, but he was just, no, you're going to get it. Come on, well, people, going on. So I relied on the experiences I had at One Life to Live. There was a wonderful actor named Michael Storm, who was a doctor. And long after he had done the daily thing of doing 20 pages and moved to California, he would get called sometime to come back. And his brain wasn't, it's like a muscle. He wasn't in shape to do those kind of pages in a couple of days. So he would always have a clipboard. And he had his pages all over that, and he carried that clipboard like like a lifesaver. And so I got myself a clipboard, and actually, as of course any actor knows or will appreciate, I had to get it locked in my head, and the thing was more of a security blanket than something I was going to be able to refer to in the middle of a scene. But I'm so ready for you, Pat. That's all I'm going to say.
Well,
I see Michael Colby there.
And Leslie Shreve. Hey, Leslie.
Michael, you writing?
Yeah, I've been doing, I did a benefit performance with a lot of actors called The Theater Will Survive. It's a video, and the money went to the Actors Fund. And we raised a lot of money. It turned out, you can see it on YouTube.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's great.
And I've been writing articles. And the question I wanted to ask was, I met Erica Slezak a few times, and I'm always astonished at the amount of memorization you're capable of doing. And I was told that she had that she had instant memory, that she could memorize on the spot.
She could memorize my lines.
She knew everyone's lines. Forget about it. Yeah. Woe the actor that didn't know what they were supposed to say back there. She knew it.
Right.
She's great.
Hillary, you did a Broadway show and a soap opera. How did you keep it straight in your head?
You just do. The thing about the soap opera is I call it the easy in and out. It's sort of like, you know, you shoved it in and then you spewed it out. And if we ever had to go back, I was like, no, I've already deleted it. It can't, I only have so much RAM in the head. You just, you know, it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you flex, and the more you flex it, the better it gets. And it starts getting easier. I mean, when we were doing the rape trial, it was 60 to 80 pages of dialogue every night. And it was, you know, courtroom stuff, and you just do it. You just kind of do it. I know there's a story about Erica that was, she was in the witness box in the courtroom, and she was looking at her script, and they usually kind of, you know, let actors kind of just, you know, refresh their mind and stuff before they go to tape. And Needles, the stage manager, looked at her and said, you know, Erica, you all right? She goes, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm sorry. I'm reading tomorrow's script.
Oh, I hate her for that. Oh, I couldn't do
I mean, it really is this being able to compartmentalize and everything else. And, you know, I was one of those people that I just got as much of the scripts as I could so I could read through it, so I could find my own arc, because we started shooting so out of sequence.
Yeah.
We were doing shows where we didn't even know how we got there. We hadn't even seen the scripts leading up to how we got there. So it got really, really crazy. And you literally only had the words because you weren't quite sure what the context was.
Oh, yeah. You know, Hillary, I was just flashing. I'm now having flashbacks, soap opera flashbacks of, you know, a couple of courtrooms scenes that you had to do. But there was one time that I don't remember which trial it was, but I know you had some pages. And the thing about doing it's not like Law and Order where you shoot one side and then you shoot the other side and then you pick up everyone's reactions. All the people in the gallery have to pay attention and put their books down when we tape, because there's gonna be a moment where camera 3 is gonna hit them, and they better be ready for a reaction for who's ever doing their monologue, you know.
Exactly.
And Hillary had a bunch of those. But there was one time where they were redoing the control room. And we had a control room outside the door on 66th Street, which is a cross street in Manhattan, very busy cross street. And there was a blind school next door, okay? So
that's right. Yeah.
Hillary's doing, now, and what was happening was when that particular day was the first day we were out there, and now we're gonna do an entire day of court. I forget who the writer was with Jill, but they did it. It was 6 acts of court, a day in court. So this thing is going on, and I'm out in a truck on a street, and there's a traffic jam because of us. And so, you know, Hillary's doing her thing. She's about, you know, a third of the way into it, and it's building, and we're getting the shots and different shots. All of a sudden I hear a boom like this in the control room, and a blind person hits our control room door, and somebody goes running out, you know, to deal with the blind person. Hillary's going, and I'm like, ready, on take 2 and 3. I'll wake up 3, but you know, and next thing you know, this 18-wheeler comes up next to the truck and just lays on the horn. And I've got to hear what Hillary's saying, okay, to cut all these people that are waiting for their moment, you know, to react with her and blah, blah, blah. And it was one of the craziest things in the world. Hillary, meanwhile, rocked this monologue. And the whole time, I don't think I ever told you this, the whole time I was waiting for the side of the truck to just get ripped off by this 18-wheeler because I could hear it right next to me.
Kudos to you, Gary, because we never knew anything like that happened on the floor. So good for you for keeping up with it. Wow.
Well, you know, I may have not been the deepest director in the world, but what I really wanted to do was to try to make it comfortable for the actors.
No, you were.
You know, like
I'll sing Gary's praises a little bit because he's not getting a lot of love in here with all of us actors. This was a guy who went from a technical director, came out on the floor and had visions, had creative vision, which is really, really rare. had a creative vision and had the technical background to be able to put it into motion. So kudos to you, because you really knocked it out of the park.
I met Gary when he was pulling around cable for the sound guy.
No, I was a
has
camera assistant with
really
big sideburns, so she would have nothing to do with me. So, you know,
no. What are those things called?
Hand shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crystal, did you have interaction with Gary? Crystal, did you have much
I
interaction?
also had hair to match, you know.
I don't know. I was only on One Life for a couple of years.
Oh, I see. So he wasn't there at the same time.
No,
we missed each other by just, yeah.
I got to work with Gary on Another World, and I didn't realize that he actually got me that job. I wasn't working. This was in the mid 90s. I just finished doing a play, but I wasn't working. And I ran into Gary, and he told me about this part, and he wanted my number. And
well, you know, here's a director on 72nd Street running into a soap actor, and you know, how you doing, what's going on, and everything. And then the discussion gets to, hey, I think I've really got a good part for you. You know,
yeah, but I thought he wanted a date.
What's your phone number and everything? And now I'm married and very happy.
I didn't even know.
Kids and this other thing. But anyways, so I asked him for contact information because I seriously know that there's this character, this governor's drunk wife, that she is perfect for. So she takes a check out of her checkbook, which was in front of the bank, and writes to check to Elmer Fudd for $1 million, and signs it, and put her phone number on there and tears it off. I have it in my book somewhere in there.
So I get this job, but this is like months later, like 6 months later. I really, and I didn't even know he got me this job until like last year, when he said, you know, I recommended you for that. And I needed that job. Let me tell you, I at the time that job on Another World came up,
but we were just respected co-worker friends at that point. I really respected like I said, any of the actors that would do this incredible pace. And then with Eileen, it was write music and perform at the Triad and all that kind of stuff. And I really respected that. But I also knew that she was perfect for this particular character. So I'm glad.
And it worked. Yeah, it worked out great. But it's so funny that I didn't even know until he.
Magda, I hate to do this. Unfortunately, both Crystal and I have a conference call that we have to get on.
Not a problem. We're ending now anyway. This is the time we're ending anyway. I just want to thank you. It was so great, and it was such an honor to have all of you on. It was really fun.
Thank you so much for having
us. Thank you.
And Leslie. Hi, Leslie.
Everybody keep well.
Eileen, so good to see you. Hi, Gary.
Thank you so much. It's so
you
much.
Two shot, by the way.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye,
Magna.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.